Well, here we are. It's June of 2026. I've been off a little bit, but that doesn't mean my walk with God has never, has changed or anything like that. There's a lot of things going on in the world, isn't there? We've got problems with Iran and this war and Israel's involvement. We've also got Lebanon, areas of the world that the Bible talks about the end times, which is an interesting thing to watch. Of course, we are not to know the end day and what's going on, but there are certain things and cues that the Bible kind of tells us this is what's going to occur. And, I've always thought if I were to look at end times, I would have looked at the time of World War II, that 1939 to 1945. A lot of innocent people were being killed in concentration camps, innocent people, a lot of Jewish people, and just all the blood of the war, how many people were affected by the war, things like this. And I would have thought, well, perhaps that's the end times. But it's like when I look at things now and I see, hey, we're trying to get peace in the Middle East, and so someone's going to come along and say, hey, here's how we can fix all of this stuff. And maybe that takes place, and it should kind of get your awareness up as to what's really happening. So let's see how that plays out. My point about walking in faith and the problem with most Christian life is our faith is tested at times, but a lot of times we don't have a lot of faith. And Jesus said, it doesn't take a lot of faith to get things done. Now you can tell this is true because a lot of people don't spend a lot of time in prayer looking for the will of God. You always have that peace inside of you when you're listening for God and spending time with God. But one of the things I was watching as all these things go on in our society, I do believe society is decaying as far as its moral values. This has been known for many years. Of course, we can start with Adam, and that's where our moral values started to fall. But it seems like crime and the sanctity of life and a lot of the way people view life and everything, there is some interesting components to that. Now, if you find yourself struggling and things aren't working out in your life, look at where your faith is. You're probably believing more that, hey, my life is pretty much a life of disappointments. Well, that's where your faith is. Your faith isn't with God, who promises you a lot of other things. And Jesus did a lot of miracles that were not. He didn't put a hex on anybody or anything like that. His life was to demonstrate God's will. And he healed a lot of people, sick people. He gave them hope. He forgave sins. And one of the things with sins are we always feel and we convict ourselves because we're not perfect. And then we feel unworthy to, enjoy the blessings of God. But one of the things that I think churches got away from and everything in the moral decline of things is that we're not teaching, hey, there's a right and a wrong. Obviously, towards the end times, we're more selfish. Everybody is driven by money, perhaps, or something. We don't care about our neighbor. We don't really have our heart in the right place, right? It's all about me. And I'm guilty of that, I'll be honest with you. I've always kind of been that way a little bit. I think it's just kind of my upbringing of not having enough, and so I always just kind of was looking out for myself to try to get ahead, which I think life really doesn't change. Everything has been seen before. But anyway, the one point I'm making is there is a right and wrong. We try to justify this by saying, hey, you can go do whatever you want to do. And it's okay because Jesus forgives your sins and, but that's not true. There's always a right and wrong, and there's the Ten Commandments, which kind of spell it out, So if your idea is, hey, I don't have enough money for this, so it's okay to steal, you need to survive. and there's certain circumstances where that fits. But for the most part, there's a lot of people out there that are pure takers, and they're not givers. Along with the morals that we have in society right now. People, like, I'm driving along and traffic's pretty steady and everybody's cooked in. And like, if I make I'm starting to make a turn, I didn't realize the car there. Honest mistake. And I look over and what do I get? Someone's flipping me off and yelling at me. And I'm like, hey, I didn't mean to do it. And there's no forgiveness. There's just this nasty part of them. And I'm like, can we just be civil? I mean, come on. I mean, you know, things happen, but it just appears society is geared like that, where we don't think of the other person. Maybe they're having a tough day, but yet we're the person that is running them off the road or being mean. You know, we've kind of got to get back to appreciating other people, giving them benefit of the doubt, forgiving them, and maybe that's what we really need, is a little bit more than that to make our society a little better. And that's a wrap. Thank you for hanging out tonight.